At around 12:30 p.m. on the 15th of January, 1919, in the North End neighborhood of Boston, Massachusetts, a huge storage tank filled with molasses burst. The sugary substance within flooded into nearby streets at great speed, destroying buildings, lifting cars and trucks on the crest of a wave, and smothering any unfortunate people in its path. In mere moments, the Boston molasses flood claimed 21 innocent lives. Molasses have many useful applications. Back in 1919, they were primarily fermented to produce ethanol, a key ingredient in both alcoholic drinks and munitions. It was the business of the Purity Distilling Company, based at 529 Commercial Street, to unload, store, and eventually process huge quantities of molasses delivered by incoming ships. The tank that caused the disaster was 15 meters, around 50 foot, tall, and 27 meters, around 90 foot, in diameter. Its size was sufficient to store more than 2 million gallons of molasses. When the collapse occurred, these 2 million gallons were unleashed all at once, forming a wave of molasses that spread rapidly in every direction, moving at speeds of up to 56 kilometers an hour, or 35 miles per hour, and reaching a height equivalent to a 2-story building. The wave, dense and fast-moving as it was, lifted a streetcar off an elevated track. It smashed some buildings flat and lifted others off their foundations. Many of the victims of the flood were killed in these first moments, but even when the wave had settled, the danger was not yet over. Molasses, denser than water, settled waist-deep in the street. Now exposed to the open air, it cooled rapidly, becoming thick and difficult to escape. One eyewitness gave the following report. Here and there struggled a form. Whether it was animal or human being was impossible to tell. Only an upheaval, a thrashing about in the sticky mass, showed where any life was. Horses died like so many flies on sticky flypaper. The more they struggled, the deeper in the mess they were ensnared. Human beings, men and women, suffered likewise. A frantic rescue effort began, with rescuers struggling to pull survivors from the sticky mess before they suffocated. It was slow and exhausting work, which went on for 4 days before a halt was finally called and the rescue operation became a cleanup. Some victims, having been completely glazed over with molasses or swept into the harbour by the flood, weren't identified for several months. Cleanup crews used saltwater to wash away the molasses and sand to absorb it. Cleanup took weeks, even with the help of several hundred volunteers. Initially, the Purity Distilling Company claimed that their tank had been blown up by anarchists and that they were not responsible for the flood. They later dropped this ludicrous claim when faced with the actual evidence, and paid up to the tune of around $7,000 per victim, equivalent to $100,000 in today's money. The evidence that won this victory was soberingly conclusive. An inquiry after the disaster revealed that the tank was half as thick as it should have been, and partly constructed from brittle manganese. Basic safety tests were not carried out during the construction of the tank, and numerous warning signs were ignored during its lifetime. The tank, for example, groaned loudly when filled, and leaked so badly that local residents would often visit it in order to collect molasses for their homes. Rather than repairing these leaks, management ordered the tank to be painted brown to better hide them. The trigger for the incident was found to be thermal expansion. A new batch of warm, viscous molasses had been pumped into the tank the previous day, raising the temperature of the contents and causing it to expand. When combined with slightly warmer weather, the thermal expansion was sufficient to rupture the tank. The area where the tank once stood is now a baseball diamond in a public park. The area is used for recreation, but there is a small plaque in place to commemorate the victims of this bizarre disaster. Some report that the smell of molasses, even now, still lingers in the air in the north end of Boston.